Sega Dreamcast, quite possibly the most misunderstood, but also the most cherished console that has ever been released. We need to talk about this thing because honestly, I don't really understand why Sega decided to quit on it. I mean, it's like Goku turning Super Saiyan, and right when he's about to annihilate Frieza, he's like, you know what, never mind, I don't want to do it. You win, Frieza. I give up. Just blow up the planet. What is up, you guys? Welcome to the collective. My name is Furman, and in this video we are talking about the Sega Dreamcast like I just said. But before we get into that, don't forget to like this video, share this video, and subscribe to my channel for more awesome content just like this. Alright, let's get into it. So, I know this might come as a shocker to you because I am a Nintendo fan through and through. Since day one I've always loved Nintendo, but you know, I have a soft spot for Sega too. It wasn't really like, oh, you know, if you like Nintendo, you can't like Sega. It wasn't really like that at my house, okay? We were just like, we love games and we wanted all of them. So obviously I had a soft spot for Sega, even though Nintendo was superior in every way, shape, and form. But I did love Sega. And when I found out about the Sega Dreamcast, I thought this thing was the coolest thing ever. I mean, the machine just looks unique. There's never really been anything like it. The controller is debatably awesome, okay? And I say debatably because a lot of people really hated that controller, but I thought it was kind of cool, you know? I mean, you get a memory card that has a little screen on it. And I mean, the screen didn't really serve much of a purpose, but it was awesome. It was really cool and it was innovative. So Sega drops this thing, and then in just a few short years, they just decide to give up on it, and they say, you know what, we're not making any more consoles anymore. It's just not worth doing. You know, the finances just aren't there. So let's pivot and let's just become a game publishing company. And that's literally what they've been ever since. But did they do it too short? Like, was it too soon? I don't know. There was a lot of buzz going on around the Dreamcast. And, you know, the games on the Dreamcast just looked absolutely stunning. I mean, remember, this is the time where we had like PS1, we had Nintendo 64, PS2 was on the cusp, you know, it was about to launch, but there really wasn't that much competition when it comes to what the Dreamcast was doing. So the games just looked vastly superior. And we all know that obviously this has a lot to do with the big blunders that they did, because obviously they decided to drop the Sega 32X, which was an addition to the Sega Genesis, and then the Sega CD, which was another addition to it. I mean, at that point, the Sega Genesis was like on life support. Obviously, that's a direct quote to the AVGN. I mean, obviously, he's the GOAT.
What were they thinking?
But yeah, it just looked awful.
Oh! Somebody! Oh! He needs some milk!
Nice.
And then after that, they tried to come out with like a standalone Sega 32X, but apparently that got scrapped. Then they came out with the Sega Saturn, which I thought the Sega Saturn was really cool. And it did have some decent games, but the unfortunate part of it is that the majority of the really good games were stuck in Japan. The Sega Saturn was just not supported internationally. It just didn't do that good. So, you know, another thing that they ended up losing a ton of money on, and then they had the Sega Dreamcast, which was like their final last hurrah, the last thing that they were gonna do, and it was great. I feel like it did amazing. I was just looking into it, you know, I was doing a little research, and I found some things that are a little bit interesting to say the least. So the Dreamcast sold 9.13 million units worldwide, and over 600 games were produced for this console. And mind you, that seems like a small number, and you know, it kind of is, but when you think about it, you know, the Dreamcast was really only alive for like 2 or 3 years. The Dreamcast was announced and released in 1998 in Japan, and then obviously in 1999 in other regions, and then by March 2001 it had already been discontinued. So that's not really that much time. That's maybe 3 years if you really want to count it. I'm pretty sure it's less than that, but it's 3 years. So 3 years, and they sold almost 10 million units. Now, when you take that into comparison with the Wii U, you know, these numbers start to look a little funny. And I know this is like a rough estimate, so, you know, by no means am I doing a full-on perfect calculation. You know, this is not the science type channel. I'm just talking basic facts, and, you know, you can kind of make a summary when it comes to that. You can make your own conclusions. But the Wii U sold 13.56 million units, and the lifetime of it was from 2012 to 2017. So what is that? That's 5 years. 5 years, and this console sold slightly more than the Dreamcast did. And the Dreamcast technically really only had 3 years. 2 in reality, if you count the worldwide release, because that's what I think really does count. It's when it's worldwide, when it's available to everyone. And mind you, the Wii U had a massive competition. I feel like the competition was more fierce now for the Wii U than it was back then for the Dreamcast. You know, obviously we had the PlayStation, which was going crazy, and the PS2 was on the horizon, and, you know, we had Nintendo doing this thing with the Nintendo 64 and the GameCube that was going to be coming out, and then Xbox, you know, Microsoft was coming out of the gates, and, you know, they wanted to make their own console. So, you know, yes, there was a lot of competition, but honestly, I don't feel like it was that bad. I don't feel like it was that massive, especially when it comes to the games, because Sega was dropping some bangers, okay? The Sega Dreamcast was getting some excellent games. And I know a lot of these games are multi-platform, but, you know, most of the time they kind of look better on the Dreamcast. The most famous one when it comes to that, it's the most obvious one, which is Marvel vs. Capcom. We all know that the second game just looks way better and runs better. It's the superior version of that game. That game is on the Dreamcast, and it's better than the PS2 and the Xbox. But yeah, let's just run through some of the games, okay? Soul Calibur, Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2, Jet Set Radio, Resident Evil Code Veronica, Skies of Arcadia, Marvel vs. Capcom 2, all of the Virtua games, because there's like 90 of them, Grandia 1 and 2, Phantasy Star Online, which I absolutely love that game, and, you know, yes, I really did only play the GameCube version of it, but still, you know, it still counts. Sonic Adventure 1 and 2, quite possibly the best Sonic games ever made. Okay, I know that's a bit of a stretch, but, you know, a lot of fans really think that those are the best games, and I kind of agree, and they're on Dreamcast, but then now they're on GameCube, but that's beside the point. Shenmue 1 and 2. Actually, I'm not sure about Shenmue 2. I think that came out on Dreamcast, but I think it was just exclusive to Japan. And then Power Stone 1 and 2. And even Bangai-O, that game that is an absolute nightmare to play on the DS, which we will not talk about that anymore because I hate it. Street Fighter Third Strike. I mean, come on. I mean, all 3 of the Street Fighter 3 games, because there's 3 of them. You know, I think it's Street Fighter 3, Second Impact, and then Third Strike. Those are Dreamcast games. The Crazy Taxis, Capcom vs. SNK, which is a big deal. The Bust a Move games. Heck, they even had the Resident Evils, you know, Resident Evil 1 and 2. They were on there. So that just goes to show that there was a lot of really good games on this console, and there was a lot to love. There was a lot to love when it comes to this thing. The UI alone, if we talk about just the UI, it's one of the best. One of the best, extremely unique. I mean, you got like the little water drops when the menu is opening up, and then everything just looks bright and colorful and vibrant. I mean, it's a stark contrast to the PS2. And it's also easily exploitable too. If you have one of the original Dreamcast ones, there's a little hack you can do, or it's not even an actual hack, it's just like a soft mod that allows you to play burnt disc. I mean, the console is just perfect. You know, I did say that as a joke, but I do realize that was part of the reason that took the thing down. You know, it took the console down, made Sega reconsider, but, you know, that's kind of their fault, okay? That's not on us, right? In conclusion, I say this to say that it is really sad. It's tragic to see Sega not be in the console wars anymore. I mean, I would have loved to see what kind of consoles they come out with. It's really sad because they had some really, truly unique ideas when it comes to consoles. And technically speaking, they were the most pro-consumer. I mean, they didn't want you to have to go out and buy a different console every 3 to 5 years. What if you had the console and they just made upgrades for it? It was a good idea, although it was kind of poorly executed and maybe a little bit too expensive. But it was a great idea. It made it so that you didn't have to go out and buy another new console and all that. And if we're being honest, a lot of those little upgrades, the 32X, the Sega CD, they failed because of the games, okay? I don't think it was necessarily just the hardware. I think it was the fact that 90% of the library was literally those really crappy full motion video games. You know what I'm talking about, right? This.
Hey. Hi. My name is Eddie. I need your help. This is my building. And since the neighborhood really sucks, I built all these traps and security systems to protect the people who live here. The problem is some bonehead locked me in the basement and cut off my controls. Except they forgot about the phone lines, which is how I got you in. Now you can protect the tenants and get me out of here. You and me are friends, right? You gotta help me. Anyway.
Yeah, it's really unfortunate to see that. I wanted to take the time out today to talk about the Dreamcast because, man, we don't talk about this thing enough. This console was truly amazing, and I know it'll probably never happen, but I mean, it would be kind of cool if Sega got back into the business. What if they did that? That would be insane, wouldn't it? Alright guys, thank you guys so much for watching the video, and as always, do not forget to like this video, share this video, and subscribe to my channel for more awesome content just like this. And we will see you guys on the next video. Peace! This is actually my favorite Dreamcast controller. Isn't that so cool? They had like the whole Funtastic line. Oh, I mean, whoops, that's Nintendo 60 Fun. They have the Colorful Expressions line. I don't remember what it's called right now, but it even comes with the colored VMU. I mean, this thing is awesome. It is just screaming 90s. And unfortunately, the stick is starting to get a little bit yellow, but it still looks pretty good. Still pretty solid. All right, bye.